Welcome into the Important Nonsense YouTube Waiver Show. It's me, Jason Draven, who I should drop, who I should add. So these are going to be players that I like. I've tried to focus in on it to make sure that they are under 40% owned. Every week, Important Nonsense puts out a Waiver Wire article on Sunday nights. These are going to be the players I would give priority and why. We're starting off this week because there are two buys this week in the Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's check them out first. I'm starting off with Justin Herbert, who's 11.8% owned. He has looked pretty awesome his first couple of games. I've been pumped with him. Looks great on film. This past week, he lost Eckler, and so I think he has become even more dynamic than he has been. He's been able to find a lot of rookie wide receivers to help him out, and as a rookie quarterback, he's been super impressive. I mean, he's averaging over 300 yards per game and 2 touchdowns per game and just under 20 fantasy points per game. Pretty awesome numbers, and even more shocking, he's done that against a good Tampa Bay secondary this week. And so coming up, he actually has the Saints, who have kind of struggled because all last week, their entire secondary was pretty much out. And surprisingly, Stafford didn't do as good, but I thought he should have done a lot better. And I think Herbert ends up continuing his role here. Next guy I'm looking at is Teddy Bridgewater. He's 9.8% owned, and I know this is crazy because I was not expecting them to do this great of a job with him, and he has just really excelled. I mean, he's been an impressive player as a backup and kind of showed signs of greatness, but one of those players that you just struggle to really believe in. And so I think he's finally starting to feel comfortable. He stepped in, and with a week of without CMC, he kind of struggled and had to make a quick pivot, and it didn't end up going too well. But his first week, he had the Raiders, put up 19 fantasy points, and of course, like I said, he lost Christian McCaffrey against the Bucks, and then he played the Chargers with Mike Davis, who really went off against them. And I mean, this past week, he didn't have any hiccups. He went and took on the Cardinals and he just destroyed them. He put up 276 yards, 2 touchdowns, threw an interception, which is unfortunate, but he's also mobile. I mean, he's averaging over 6 yards per carry, and I mean, this past week, he went 6 for 32 yards and a touchdown, which added to his 26 fantasy point week. I mean, this is great for him, and this week, upcoming, he has the Falcons secondary, which don't know if you guys been watching, but they have not looked good at all. Moving into running backs, I like Chase Edmonds at 25.2% rostered. So he is, 74.8% available, makes him pretty widely available. And I get it. You're saying, why would you trust a player like this? Well, to me, it's the fact that Drake has, this past week he left the game because of a chest injury, and I know it's tough. You have to hate the backfield because Murray is continually stealing the touchdowns, and with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, there's not a whole lot of space for these running backs to really have room. They just seem to be really struggling. While Drake has continued to do great, Edmonds continues to see a lot of use in the passing game, and I think that's a great option for him. He continues to get around 4 carries a game for about 15 yards. In passing, he's getting around 4 targets, which is pretty solid. I wish his yards per reception were a little higher because he's about 17 yards per game. So not great, but somebody to keep an eye on, especially if you're a Drake owner, you definitely want to pick him up. The next is actually Brian Hill, who I haven't been huge on, but he is up and coming. I mean, he's had a couple, the first 2 weeks he was just iffy, but past 3, not including Monday because I'm clearly recording then, past 3 weeks he has put up 3 carries in the first 2 weeks for 12 and 14 yards respectively. Also had 2 receptions in the first 2 weeks for 8 and 11 yards and put up 4 and 4.5 fantasy points, which doesn't sound great. However, last week against Chicago, he put up 9 carries for 58 yards and his first TD of the year. He also added 1 reception for 22 yards. So it might be a trend that's changing. I'm putting him on my bench just because I'm getting thin, and so if he does pop off, he could be a great addition for you guys. But as I mentioned before, Austin Eckler is out, so I wish Josh Kelly, which a lot of people are already owned because of his use in the first couple of weeks, really got him high on him. But Justin Jackson is going to be the other back in the backfield, okay? He's 8.8% rostered right now, leaving a whole lot of him available. I'm trying to pick him up as quick as I can. While Kelly is, I think, the clear starter, I do think Jackson will be used. Both have great talent on a team that really wants to run the ball with Anthony Lynn and control the clock. This is what they like to do. They usually have around 27 rushing attempts per game, and the team usually gives about 6 targets to the running back. So something to kind of keep an eye eye on. Great opportunities, and with Kelly having fumbling issues the past 2 weeks, could leave a door wide open for Justin Jackson to walk right through. Moving into wide receiver, T. Higgins is 25.7% rostered. He has finally become an active piece of this team, with AJ Green being the letdown. Higgins has stepped into the outside wide receiver role very well. He has finally surpassed Green, who, wow, has looked rough, but remains behind Boyd, who has emerged as the wide receiver one. I mean, he broke out, I guess, now 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to make sure he got usage this week, and it seems that the connection between him and Burrow is real. I mean, past week, 3 weeks, he has scored 6.5 fantasy points against the Browns, 21 fantasy points against the Eagles, which is due to a 2-touchdown game, and 13 fantasy points this past week against the Jags. Like, these are great numbers for him. Finally, it's Cole Beasley, who is 20.2% owned. He has been very consistent. I mean, with Allen using all of his wide receivers, Beasley has shown some great and fortitude. I mean, this past week, he just balled out for people, going above and beyond to help Allen and just continue to make him look good. While this past week, he was his worst yardage because he was out for a part of the day. He did end up with a decent fantasy day because he scored a touchdown. So he has put up 9.8 fantasy points against the Jets, 12 against the Dolphins, 16 against the Rams, and 12.2 against the Raiders, which could have been higher had he not been out for a portion of the game. I feel like he has been quietly good, and with Diggs showing there and really being the wide receiver one, it takes a lot of pressure off the other players, and so I really like him moving forward. So I went even deeper here for you guys with wide receiver because I wanted somebody that everybody could grab. My last pick is Zac Pascal, 2.1% owned. I know he is somebody I have been watching, and he just does not look good, and I get it, but he's getting the targets, and that's what matters here because Campbell's out and Pittman Jr. hasn't stepped up, and while Rivers loves a tight end, he also loves the slot guy, and I think that that's what Pascal has been doing for him. The past 2 weeks of being a wide receiver for Rivers, pretty decent. I mean, he's not a great pass catcher, but he has been catching around 50%, which could be better. Well, just something to keep an eye on and readily available for you guys. That team continues to roll. Looking at tight ends, I'm moving into Dalton Schultz, who's pretty high a percent already at 33.7% owned. He seems to be one of the main targets for Dak and is the leading red zone target for Dak Prescott. I mean, this guy is definitely stepping into Blake Jarwin's role, which just hurts me to my bones. Like, I was so pumped for Jarwin this season, but at this point, he's averaging, 15.9 fantasy points. That's a pretty awesome number, you guys. I mean, the defense is not going to get any better for the Cowboys, and Dak's going to continue to have to throw. So he should be fine in fantasy. Speaking of teams with bad defenses, Greg Golson is the next guy, and I know it makes me just bitter too because at 14.7% owned, he has become the tight end for the Seahawks, clearly knocking out Will Disley, also hurting my soul. You guys know he's also averaging 8 fantasy points per game. Granted, that is due to the fact that he had a goose egg against the Patriots secondary who just killed him. He only had one target that game and he couldn't catch it. So outside of that, he's averaging 10.6 fantasy points. That's a pretty solid number for a tight end. Just think about it. If he gets in the end zone, even better. He could be a great play this week as he gets Minnesota, and I'm pretty pumped for it. So moving into defenses, the Cardinals are 42.3% owned. I know. I was let down this past week. I picked them up and expected them just to hold the Panthers, not have any issues, but they allowed 31 points to the Panthers, and they were not able to even touch the quarterback. It was so frustrating of a day for me. They've gave me -2 fantasy points, and I doubt that a lot of people are dropping them because of the fact that this week they get the Jets. Talk about great. Oh, wait, and Darnold is having AC joint issues. With that in mind, that means that you're going to want to fire up any defense that's getting the Jets over the next couple of weeks. Just something to keep an eye on. After this week, however, I am probably dropping them because they are getting the Cowboys and the Seahawks who can score, and the next defense is the Chiefs at 28.6% owned, or rostered, sorry. They have only had one bad game, and it's against the Chargers, haha, yay, where they put up -1 points, and that was due to the fact that they were able to just score on them. I was super impressed with Herbert. Like I've been saying, the team showed up against Houston and Baltimore. Great, a lot better competition. I'm just assuming that they didn't know about Herbert and weren't quite ready with tape. So I'm hoping that's just the issue for them and they continue to roll. The upcoming week, they get the Las Vegas Raiders as a team that showed that they can be handled, as the Bills did just that and put up 5 points, even though they allowed the Raiders to score 23 points. Just saying, kind of a iffy situation for you guys. Now, I hope this helps. I would love any feedback you have. As a reminder to watch for other players players that are being dropped during the waiver period, because you could find some great steals here by people just giving up on players. Like I can potentially maybe see DJ Moore getting dropped. So feel free to let me know what you guys think at that FF Nerd on the Fantasy Life app, Twitter and Instagram. You can also find a great load of information at importantnonsense.com. And as always, remember to keep up the nonsense.